Gwan, how you there? What's good? And you know who this is, baby. The number one podcast in America, dedicated to all you kings and queens of color, homies and homettes, shotters, woo gals, G-boys, and charges. The one and only Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast.
Gwan, how you there? What's good? And welcome to season 4 of the Jerk Jollof and Collard Greens podcast. I know you guys have been patiently waiting. I know you ladies are in angst, but it's finally time. Your founding 5 of the world's most cultured podcasts are finally here. Yes, we took a little hiatus. We had some planning to do. We had some reorganizing to do. We had some leveraging to do. We had a lot of things to do because we're just doers and that's what we do. All right. So with episode 31, to start this season, D, I know you're ready. I know you're
that's what we do.
That's what we do. We're doers. That's what we do.
Doers.
Exactly. We have a wide array of content lined up for you all this season. I think we all enjoy a lot of value-packed content coming to you all with a lot of good information, a lot of good tidbits. But for episode 31, I think this kind of resonates with everyone, especially during this time of the year. Something about the holiday season just brings about stress, right? Financial stress, time stress, cuffing season stress, Thanksgiving stress. Who's making the mac and cheese this Thanksgiving? Who's bringing the potato salad? You know, if you're in a Nigerian household, probably who's making the pounded yam this season? You know what I mean? Like who's doing the cooking this year?
God.
that part, 100%.
Like for real. Like something about this, like, once November starts, like I know once, like for me, like once Halloween is over and November kicks in, to me the year is already done, right? I don't know how you guys feel, but to me it's like the year is done. It's about to be Thanksgiving. For work, I go from like 70% effort to like about 20%. You know, don't quote me on that. It's like facts. It's like something about the end of the year that says like, yo, Thanksgiving and Christmas, I'm done. 2022. Y'all don't feel the same?
Nah,
way?
I go to like a 120, bro. A 120.
It ramps up.
120.
It ramps up over here, bro. It's no joke. It's like we're about to start the year strong, and we also have to finish strong. So start racking up all of the projects and stuff. So
yo, for me, my director will be like, Glenn, you know, you have to do, like he'll send me work I know I have to do already. It's like, bro, you're telling me things I know I already have to do. And I'll just like delay my responses like an extra day or two. And I'm just like, yo, you're telling me things that I know. Like, come on, bro. Like, seriously, it's the end of the year. We know this is not going to get resolved at the end of this year, but that's a rant. So let's continue on with the episode. All right. So for today, we're going to discuss what it means to establish the ideal balance between work, life, and family. So if you're someone that often feels unable to effectively manage their personal time, repeatedly misses moments with the family or a loved one due to work, or feeling completely unfulfilled or disassociated from your career, and you'll definitely want to tune into this episode as we'll be identifying habits, tendencies, and behaviors that have negatively and positively impacted our ability to create a sense of stability within our lives. And we'll also share our opinions on the significance of mastering the ability to say no. Hell no at times too. Uncover whether there's such thing as doing too much, to people that are overambitious or have a hard time saying no, or just, have a lot on their plates all the times. And provide our best tips along with personal accounts on how we actively work to leverage our time between staying connected to friends and family, allowing to have time for ourselves because, self-care is important, all the while pursuing our dreams and our goals and our goals in life. But that'll be discussed and plenty more right after we pay these tributes. So before we delve any further, if you aren't already a follower or perhaps tuning in for the first time and you'd like to learn more about the show, definitely check us out on Insta, Jerk Jollof Collard Pod, where you can stay up to date on our latest offerings, announcements, and join the JJC community. And one special thank you I wanted to give was out there to Morocco for showing us some major love. We got an email from Podstats indicating that we're actually somewhere like in the top 30 or top 40 in the Society and Culture podcast in Morocco. So a huge shukran to all y'all out there in Morocco showing us some love. We're gonna have to drop like some Morocco beats, on the next episode or something like that, or towards the end, throw some tracks out there for y'all, because we definitely appreciate the love. Drop us a review, follow us on Insta, show us some love, tell us what y'all like to hear us talk about. We'll definitely love to have y'all on one of these episodes. And now, if you know anything about this show, you know that we are the world's most well-seasoned, rhythmically inclined, the world's most cultured podcast. And I attribute that honor to my brothers in bond here. The founding five were -1 today, due to some, like I said, it's our holiday season, things get rough. But here on the panel, we have Dre P, half Boricua, half amazing, the creative director of the group, I would say, because he is the image. He has created us. All those characters you see of us on the pod, that's all his work right there, bro.
Oh man, thank you. You. What's up, everyone? I'm happy to be back.
All right, sounds good. Next up, we have Francis, social media assassin. He's out there responding to requests, dropping in your DMs, plugging you all the time of the pod. What's going on, Francis?
What's popping, bro? New season. Let's go.
You already know. Stay tuned for that announcement coming up this week. By the time they hear this, it would have already been dropped, so they're good. But we're reminding y'all, season episodes dropping this Wednesday. Don't forget. And next up, we have D Black, the originator, the father of the group. What's going on? Founding father of the pod.
What's up? Really good. It was really good. It was good, everybody.
All right. Bet. So I was just like, yeah, if you guys saw the agenda, I want to tell y'all something real crazy I saw before I get to the rep yours. But, other than the holidays, this is also probably the season for a lot of birthdays and anniversaries too, right? So I was on Craigslist because, I'm in the market for a home right now. I'm trying to get on my bigger pockets, house hacking, BRRRRRRR situation. You know what I mean? So, sometimes Craigslist can be a rabbit hole too. Sometimes I like to check, what people are in the mood for, looking for on Craigslist. Not that I'm interested, I'm involved. You know what I mean?
Mm-hmm.
But you see some crazy stuff.
That's what he said.
Sounds suspicious as hell.
Yeah, right.
Nah, like you've never done a dive on Craigslist though. Like you'll see some crazy stuff on there. So, for instance, there was an inquiry. I'm not sure if it was from a man or a woman, but they were looking for a twerking cake cutter. All right. So from the description, it was actually someone to hold like a sharp item, sharp enough to slice cake, and legit twerk and cut the cake at the same time. So when I saw that, I was like, it was like for a birthday party, like dead ass. I was just like, yo, how
they gotta be trolling. They gotta be trolling, bro.
Man, you know what? I don't know, man. That sounds like some Georgia ATL type of vibe, man. Man, I don't know, man.
Yeah, we definitely gotta put this in the show notes, and maybe we'll find a way to get this out to the Instagram followers. I feel like you're doing a great job of explaining it, but I think to actually see I feel like we got to take a screenshot of this and like make sure we have it. Like, yeah, we got to make sure.
No, it's easy. Just literally just it's easy for them. Just get butt naked, put a knife between your butt cheeks, and twerk, and then that's it.
Like top. Like,
so D Black, if it's so easy, are you the one who does this in your spare time? Is that what you're telling me? If it's so easy, how do you know it's easy? How would you know this is easy?
I don't know. Is it? I mean, like, what is it? Like, what? Like, I mean, first of all, the gluteus. They call it gluteus maximus for a reason because it's the strongest muscle in the body. So I'm pretty sure it can hold a knife.
It takes some hell of a yams to hold a knife, bro, and slice at the same time. My thing is, who the hell is eating this cake at the end of that, though? Like, legit.
Yo, this could be a bachelor party, actually, thinking about it. But why would you have a cake? I don't know. It could be a bunch of dudes, and it's one of the boys' birthday or something. I don't know. But it sounds like a bachelor party, guys night out vibe, or guys vacation. I don't know, man.
Well, it's crazy because my girlfriend's, her son just had his 5th birthday. So I was like, I bet, this could be like.
So you about the contractor, dude?
For the 6th, number 6. You never know. You know what I mean? It'll be like
it's that time.
That Lion King moment. You know what I mean? When you have the whole Simba up, like, you're a man now.
Oh boy.
Oh my
Glenn,
God.
all I gotta say is I'm gonna be looking for my invite if that happens. So
I got you. Like all the dads are lined
It's
up.
gonna be the gnome. It's gonna be the gnome on the porch. The gnome on the porch. That's how you're gonna know where it's at.
Like catching the first flight to Jersey. Real quick.
Like, you got that twerking cake gonna come into this side? All right, I got you.
Oh no, but yo, in all seriousness, I just think it's really interesting because I remember when we were younger, like Craigslist, you would actually get like legitimate jobs, like services, hookups. people's like furniture, all that good stuff.
You mentioned
Then it just got
Miss
weird.
Misconnections was always the funniest one for me. Are you familiar with the Misconnections piece of it?
No, what's that?
So misconnections would be like, let's just say we're all this is all back at a time when we were all single, right? So I don't want to get anyone indicted or in trouble, right? But let's just say you went to the grocery store, right? And you saw a beautiful woman. Basically, you would go on Craigslist and say like, hey, were you the woman I saw in ShopRite with the purple shirt? If so, hit me up. And there were like all these stories where people were like finding people by just randomly posting on misconnections. It's crazy.
That sounds scary.
That's a thing.
That sounds crazy.
It was a thing. Yeah. But I guess like right in today's world, if you don't have someone's like name or social, right? Like how else would you finally connect them, right? Maybe I don't know. But
hey, were you
that
the
was
girl
a thing
with the purple shirt and those super tight jeans?
Yeah,
crazy yams.
With the aliens.
Like, were you that
standing next to the produce?
Was that you at the 6th birthday party?
I mean, talking about Craigslist, my experience with Craigslist has been negative, actually. I've been like ripped off a few times, well, a couple times, where I paid for a ticket, and one time I never got it. And I had to I let my bank yo, I just paid for this ticket and they never sent it to me. So I need my money back. So that was one experience on Craigslist.
Bro,
you buying sporting tickets on Craigslist?
Yeah, it was last minute.
Wow.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't know people really gotten enough time in their hands to be ripping people off like that. But I don't know, man.
With the internet, people have unlimited time to rip people off.
Yeah,
getting more clever now. Getting more clever.
Bro, it sounds so legit though. I spoke to the guy on the phone.
I got him. Yeah, I got him.
It was it sounds so legit, bro. Like, I don't know. I felt so played and sad. And my wife was excited to go to the concert too. It was her one of her, I forgot who it was, but it was just a really, I don't know, man. But anyways.
Well, you know what? Shout out to the.
As soon as they told you to meet you.
Yeah, go ahead.
Oh my bad. As soon as they told you to meet them at a PO box, you should have figured it out, cuz.
Yeah.
No, it was all digital. They were supposed to send it via it's all.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Damn, yeah, man. Craigslist can be a scary place, man. So definitely be careful out there, especially now where deep fakes are a real thing. They can put your boy's image on a note and send it to you. You think he's talking to you, asking you for a Zelle or a Venmo or something, and it ain't really that person, especially on Craigslist, where all that anonymity is just crazy. But Twerk and Cake Cutter's bringing it back. If you're out there, you know how to twerk and cut a cake at the same time, drop us a DM at Jerk Jollof Call a Pod. As a matter of fact, we want to see that. I like to see that. Allegedly.
You can send that directly.
Yeah, I was gonna say. I feel like now I'm gonna go down a rabbit hole looking at Craigslist ads. I just saw a misconnection where some guy is trying to meet some woman because she had an amazing feet. I dropped a link in the chat, but I have problems with you, Glenn. I feel like I'm not gonna be spending too much time just looking and laughing at random Craigslist misconnections ads.
That is crazy, but that's the perfect shy guy dating app. I was gonna say something, but I didn't. But are you there? That's scary though.
And then it'd be some other 70-year-old fat dude on the other side, yeah, that's me.
I mean, the description is so vague. I don't know, man. What am I supposed to do with this?
Dre, for the misconnection, they put pictures? Do they be putting
No.
themselves?
It's just they just list out. They just write a note and then they'll drop a pin in the location where they were at. So then you would know around this time in this area.
Bro, this thing straight says, I noticed your great looking feet and flip-flops and I really wanted to compliment you, but never had the chance to talk to you.
Right.
That is so
what am I supposed to do with that? What am I supposed to do with that?
Maybe that woman with the amazing feet, there's a small chance that she would get on Craigslist, she would go to Misconnections, she would see that was in her area, and she would hit him up. I don't know. I guess you gotta shoot your shot, right? You
gotta point 0.000000000 more zeros chance.
I wondered if anyone noticed my feet today, my amazing feet today. If you're in the valley and you notice my amazing feet, let me know.
Francis, you miss every shot you don't take, man.
Exactly.
Well, I feel it. He should have. Yeah, he missed a shot already. He missed it when he missed it and he didn't talk to her when he saw her. Like, what you mean?
Oh man,
That was the shot he had, and he hairball.
That's crazy. But I guess speaking of which, before we jump into this discussion on time management, let's give a shout out for our rep yours today to Bit Hall Cantina in Clifton, New Jersey. And honestly, if you know anything about Clifton, Passaic, or any of those surrounding areas, it's never short of exceptional cuisine hailing from across the border. And Bit Hall is certainly a noteworthy and new addition. Bit Hall provides a fine dining spin on traditional Mexican favorites such as mole and enchiladas, ceviche, and even items I've had the pleasure of experiencing, such as their Mexican-style pizzas that are portioned for groups on a budget and pair well with any of their signature craft cocktails. This is definitely a chop-worthy addition in my book, so you're ever in the Clifton or Passaic area and looking for a sophisticated, casual, lounge-like atmosphere serving them fine Mexican cuisine and creative drinks, stop by Bit Hall Cantina located at 1061 Bloomfield Ave, Clifton, New Jersey, or make a reservation on Open Table or at their website at bithalnj.com. Can't forget, follow them on Instagram at bithalnj and add some balance to your palate. You never know, you might find like a misconnection at Bit Hall. If you were in Bit Hall, you know, and you were sipping that smoky agave, let me know. Hit me up. I'm in New Jersey. I'm waiting for you.
maybe.
That's crazy. You just drop that for everywhere you go. I'd be scared if somebody actually responds. That's nuts. That's like, yo, yeah, that was me. It's like that's crazy. That's crazy. Now, without further ado, let's chop. And I think, you know, when it comes to work-life balance, you know, I mean, I'll just say I'm quick to be the one to be like, I say no to everything. You know what I mean? Like, I'll just say that. But anyway, let's jump into the questions. So first question I have for you all, and this segment I like to call unbalanced. So basically, finding out that you may not be balanced in your endeavors or in your life. And how do you identify that, right? You may not know you have a problem until you hear other people's situations, because sometimes when you're unbalanced, it may feel like the norm, especially if you've been unbalanced for a very long time. So first thing I'd like to ask you all, how would you define the ideal work-life balance? And what that means is basically, what does this look like or mean? What would the ideal work-life balance be to you? And let's start off with Francis on this one.
Yeah, bro. Man, this is a topic that I feel like I struggle with myself, you know, and I'm really excited that we are talking about this, because I would like to hear what the guys have to say about their struggles with work-life balance and some of the activities and action that you guys take to help in this area. You know, for me, ideally, I think I see work-life balance as having the ability to do your work well, and also have time for your family and do the things that you want to do in your personal life. That's the ideal from an ideal state. But the reality is, you know, I feel like it's hard to really separate out work and our personal life. I think they are somewhat integrated with each other. Well, depending on really what kind of work you do, you know, I think they are just kind of, especially now that we are working from home too. So it's really, it's like a work life integrated. And so how do you integrate your personal life and separate it out and kind of mesh it with your personal life and still get your work done? So, but for me, like when I'm stressed out with work, you know, I always tell my wife, you could just tell how stressful I am with work and how unbalanced I am based on the way my room look. You know, my room, I don't get to do, like, I might do my laundry, but I don't have time to like fold my stuff, and it just piles of clothes just in my bedroom, just kind of going crazy. And I don't have time to even like, I don't get a haircut, don't I be looking rough, you know, barely make it to the gym. So like he has a, you know, mental and you know, and physical impact on your life. So it's really critical that we, you know, we make time for ourselves and self-love. You know, we throw that word out all the time, but I think it's really critical. And that is, and I know we'll kind of get into that a little bit, but yeah, I'm excited to see what the rest of the boys have to say about this.
And it's crazy that you made that correlation between your room and your appearance, because there are actually tied. I believe there was a study that suggested that, you know, if you want to know what a person is thinking or what would be inside their mind, just take a look at their room or just take a look at their living quarters, and that will tell you a lot, you know, about what that person may be going through. So it's very interesting that you brought that up.
Yeah.
Yeah. So next up, let's go to Dre on this one.
Yeah. I think I don't know if there is an ideal one. I think for me, the biggest thing is if there's like a launch or if there's some like deadline on the, in the works, then to me, there really is no balance, right? It has to get done, at least in the work that I do. So, in those instances, then there is no work-life balance. It's work until you can get it, until it's done, right? To meet certain deadlines, with some of the work that I'm doing, it's like this needs to launch on this day at this time, right? And here are all these moving pieces, and you have until this time to get it done, right? And if it's working until 3:00 in the morning and then going to sleep for a couple hours and waking back up at 5 to then finish it, that is kind of what it is. So in those respects, I definitely will throw out I'll throw all caution to the wind, and I would say that I'm definitely not great at balancing those things. The balance is definitely just like getting it done, however that goes. But if there's not something that's a deadline or whatever, I normally try to work in a way to where I know kind of my level of productivity. I know that I'm most kind of productive really early in the morning. So that is when I will try to get the most of the work done. And I know towards the end of the day, I'm not as productive. So maybe I use that time to like get out emails and those type of things. But I think one thing I learned was definitely like, if I am super tired, there's no point in me working at 20%, right? So just like stop immediately, try to go for a walk, do whatever. Now, if there's not a deadline that I have to like reach tomorrow, then I will just stop working and go do something, whether it's go play Xbox or whether it's go for a walk or go for a drive. So in that respect, I will see if I'm not at like my optimal working percentage, and I'll try to do something else again if there's not like a deadline. But I've basically got it to a science now where I know if I'm not being productive, I should just stop, because you could either keep on working at your 20%, right, or you can recharge and get better. So something that may take me an hour to do when I'm at my 100% will take me 4 hours to do at 20%, and it's just I'm wasting my time, right? So I think for me, it's been a little bit of I think working from home for the last like 6 years has really kind of got me kind of pretty good at like having the very strict work-life balance. Now that I'm in like an basically we have like a separate bedroom that we just use for office. So it makes it a lot easier to just, okay, I'm in the office now, it's time to work. When I'm not working, I'm out of the office. It was a little bit harder in our previous apartments where literally my couch was right next to my desk, right? So it's a lot harder to kind of make that thing. So I normally try to keep my laptop in the office. And basically when I come in here, I'm here to work. And then when I'm out, I try to not bring it there. But yeah, those are my other tips. I mean, the other tip that I've been doing is I've definitely been taking advantage of that iPhone, Apple people. I've been definitely taking advantage of all the different like focus tools that they have now, where you can like go do not disturb, right? So you can say like turn off all your notifications for the next hour. You can set time windows, so you can say from 8 o'clock at night to 6 o'clock in the morning. I don't want to get any email alerts, right? So I've been trying to use those a lot more often, and using some of those tools to like either minimize distractions.
We'll
the last thing.
We'll get into the tips though. We'll get into the tips.
Okay.
Jumping ahead. We'll get into the tips. Definitely good info there. And I think, and I guess correct me if I'm mistaken, looking at Dre and Francis, also like how you're employed as well plays a part. Because I think Francis, you work in a corporate setting. So you're required to be in at a certain time. And I think, Dre, you're more self-employed, right? So that also plays a part in how you define the ideal balance, because, I'm corporate as well. I know I have to be in, regardless if I do anything or not. I just know I have to clock in from 8:30 to 5:30 every day. You know what I mean? As opposed to maybe having a project that has a deadline, and maybe I can work 5 hours this day, 5 hours the next day. Oh, I got time, maybe another next 2 days. So that also probably plays a part in how balance may be considered ideal. So, what the question was, finding out the ideal balance for you, but also having that difference in employment status also helps with our listeners, that also not everyone's on the clock. So it's just like you said. Yeah,
no, I think that's a good point. Actually, the way if you have a set time for work, I think actually helps with work-life balance, because you know when you come, when you
Start
when you
and
go.
stop.
Yeah.
Mhm.
But when you actually, like in my role is also fluid. I don't have a start and end time. So it's actually makes it more complicated because now you have to police yourself. You have to police your work. You have to police like when to get up and have lunch. You know, a lot of times we have lunch in the same seat that we've been sitting for hours, and we actually don't get up and leave for maybe 30 minutes or an hour just to get away from it because we like so focused on a project like Dre's comment, and we just want to get it done and get it done well. And we sacrifice, you know, even maybe you plan to, you know, I'm gonna go to the gym at noon, but because you're so caught up, you know, with what you're doing, that you actually end up just working through lunch and you don't make time for yourself. But yeah, I'll let my cousin go in. It's a lot. Yep.
Yeah. So I think it's interesting the premise of work-life balance. I've actually written a couple papers about this. Um, it's interesting because of the fact that I feel like as a society, we tend to have a perception that there's a correlation between production and how much time we actually dedicate to something. Sometimes you have to kind of step away in order to clear your head and, you know, renew your thinking in order to be productive. You know, I actually do have some stats. So like the Better Life Index. So one thing is kind of interesting because like in the Better Life Index, this is a website where you constantly be able to see the work-life balance across countries and how they kind of evaluate it and some of the metrics there. So anyone wants to go check it out. But the US is actually in the bottom third as far as work-life balance, which is related to how much time we dedicate to work. But then when it comes to in comparison of the GDP, the US is actually number one. And we actually are the most technically economic country, the most profitable in a sense, right? But then you think there's a correlation. So you're like, oh, okay, if we have crazy work-life balance, if you're always working, you must be making crazy money. But then you have other countries that are in that have really good, like for instance, Germany is actually in the top ranked, like I think the top third of countries when it comes to work-life balance, but they're also in the top like 10, 20 countries when it comes to GDP. So that means you can be successful without burning your people out. And I think so that I don't know, it's just so interesting to me because, and the reason why I bring it up is because I've always had the mindset, especially as an African, that, you know, the more work you do, the harder you work, you know, the more successful you be, you know, but that's not necessarily always the case. Your body needs to recover. Your mind needs to recover, you know. Having a renewed mind and having a refreshed body allows you to be more productive, allows you to be more clear in thinking. And it's something that I know I personally struggle with it because it's just very difficult to continue to balance different things, but you definitely need to have dedicated time to kind of step away, really kind of think, clear your head, and that allows you to be a renewed person and bring a new perspective to the table that maybe you wouldn't have thought of or wouldn't have had on 2 hours of rest, you know?
Exactly. So essentially, it's like, you know, when I look at the ideal work-life balance is essentially, yeah, I want to, if I were like an employer, I would want, or self-employed for that matter, I want to have as much time where I can rejuvenate so I can be at my best. Therefore, I can give you my best work. It's kind of hard, like, to know, to give your best at your job when you're dreading waking up in the next 6, 7, 8 hours. You know what I mean? You just like, okay, damn, I got to go to sleep, come back home late. Just to go to sleep is to wake up to go back to work again. So it's like, you know, for me, and that's some great points you did there. And thanks for the stats on that as well. You know, definitely with America probably having some of the most overworked people in this country. And, you know, to me, the ideal work-life balance would be, okay, I'm able to do my work, but at the same time, I'm able to spend time with my family and friends. I'm able to pursue my endeavors. You know what I mean? The things that make me happy, that I'm passionate about. I'm able to do this repeatedly on a continuous cycle and not have to sacrifice any one or the other. The way that may happen may not always be the same. You know, you may have to instead call that relative instead of seeing them from face to face. That's fine. You know, I mean, things do happen in life, but I should still be afforded that opportunity to do so, to not have to like sacrifice certain connections or certain things that are important to me. Because at the end of the day, it's like, what are you working for if you have no balance in your life just to make somebody else rich? So it's just like,
Yeah.
that's very, very interesting points. And I guess before we move on
I
to the
think
next
one.
point, yeah.
Oh,
Go ahead. I was going to ask.
I think one thing.
Closing comments.
Oh yeah. Sorry.
Mhm.
I think what's interesting too that you mentioned, Selassie, is that you kind of have to also ask yourself, why are you working? Because I think we get into such a rhythm of doing things that we kind of lose, the reason why we did it. Like if you're ultimately, I mean, I think COVID is I think they're calling this time like the Great Resignation.
Yeah,
I saw it on like
Yeah,
NBC or something like that. And it's because of the fact that a lot of people were able to kind of reassess hey, do I need to be driving myself crazy? People are dying, we're losing family members, people getting sick, and or even on a lesser scale, you haven't seen family members in the year because you've been quarantined.
Facts.
Your priorities are being priorities are being reset, and then you realize you work in order to maintain those relationships, support your family, support yourself, be happy, not the other way around.
Exactly. That was a great point there, because it's essentially, like, what is the point to all this? And you're right, COVID, shout out to COVID in this sense. You know what I mean? I know it's been a very, very hard time, but COVID has, definitely put the 2020 in 2020 in the sense where it gave people a brand new perspective on things. And when you mentioned the era of Great Resignation, it's true. People were starting to look at, what is the value behind what I'm doing? Like, why am I sacrificing, stressing myself out? I think Dre was going to drop something on this as well.
Yeah, I was going to say, it was really cool to hear all those stories where people were like, I don't want to live in this big city anymore. I'm paying all this rent. Like I could, I know there's been all these like really fun stories where people are literally just moving out of state and still trying to keep their job and just not telling their employers. Like there was some crazy story. This guy like moved to Mexico and his work laptop got stolen in Mexico, right? So he's talking to his job and he's trying to like let them know that his laptop got stolen. So they're like, oh, did you do a police report? And he's like, yeah. And they're like, okay, can you send us the police report? And he's like, he's like, he eventually had to tell his boss that he's like now living in Mexico, and his boss is cool about it. But I know there's a lot of stories where people were just like, you know what, I'm just, people who live like, let's just say on the East Coast, right, live in, New York or New Jersey, just like, let's just move further out, right? Let's not pay a ridiculous amount of money for rent in a small place. Let's buy a house somewhere, right, further out and just figure it out. So yeah, I would agree that that's been some of the good that I've seen. I think a lot of people have gotten like clarity on like, is this really the job that I want to do, right? Like, all these people dying and you start to have all these like, I think a lot of people have had this like come to Jesus moment where they're like, is this job worth it, right? It's been cool to see people starting new businesses, right, and kind of figure out their own way of kind of surviving, right, and realizing maybe it wasn't that hard to do, right? Like I could have done it this whole time. So that's been the positive I've seen out of it.
Yeah. All right, so let's jump into this one then. So considering where America stands and this era, this generation that we're in, we're blessed to have all this kind of like technology, autonomy, convenience, and accessibility. I mean, why do you guys feel it's still so difficult for us to achieve balance? It's like when we weren't able to meet in the office, we were given Zoom. We went on Zoom, we went on Microsoft Teams, things like that. If you want to talk to someone across the world, you can now do that for free with WhatsApp. Back in my day, you had to get like a phone card, or take the chance of running up your T-Mobile minutes and paying $1,000 for that 10-minute phone call for someone overseas.
Hey, you're not that old. You're not that old.
Maybe try to use Skype. Skype.
Yeah, but I think you have to pay for Skype, no?
No, Skype was.
If it was video, yes. But I think they did. I think they were trying to get over some people with having like a phone type of thing where they were charging by the minute, because I think they found out that people were using it over the internet for free, and I think they tried to crack down later. That's probably why they're not where they used to be, because they dropped the ball kind of crazy.
Facts. And then like WhatsApp came out, and that's pretty much been the medium everyone's using. So I guess back to the question, like, why is it still so difficult for us to achieve balance? Because I mean, let's be real, a lot of our problems aren't even associated with just the job. The job is one part. That's a major part. If you look at it, like for me, I work 8 hours. I really work like 9 hours a day, especially when I'm in the office. And if you think about it, you're thinking about, okay, I'm clocking in at 8 and going to 5, but no, if I'm waking up at 6 to get to work by 8, that's now like a 10-hour day. You know what I mean? Plus, I got to reserve another, 6 to 8 hours, but realistically, maybe 4 to 5 hours for sleep. So it's like, what time do I really get to enjoy my day and do the things that I want to do on a daily basis? But, you know, back to the question, like, why is it so difficult for us to achieve balance if we have all these conveniences? Like, do you guys see any correlation between that? Like, why is it so hard for us to do so?
I mean, like for me, I think there's a lot more been demanded from us in this generation than maybe in the previous generation. I think, you know, I feel like our job, you know, I feel like a lot of us are burnt out, man. Like we are being overworked. You know, our employers asking us to do like a 2.0 you know, like employee work and kind of do it to keep it to one person. You know, people are leaving your company and they're not backfilling them, and you have to take on their responsibility. So, you know, we kind of see this kind of example every day. And on top of that, you know, people have to work maybe even multiple jobs to even able to afford to like, because, you know, with inflation, you know, things are getting more expensive, but our pay is not increasing over the last, you know, decade or 20 years or whatever. I don't remember the actual stat, but everything is getting more expensive, while pay has been flat for the last decade at least. So people have to work multiple jobs just to maintain their lifestyle. So there's a lot of like, you know, issues with that. Then we also have to, you know, we have social media. We have a lot of distraction nowadays too, that I feel like is keeping us away from getting to some of the stuff we want to do. You know, we want to be, you know, if you are dating, you want to, you know, you're on social media swiping right and left, you know, that kind of takes away time to actually do more tangible things, right? Then you also want to go on dates, you know, get to like, you know, form this connection with somebody. That takes a lot of time. Then on top of that, you have to be a friend, be a family member, be a auntie, be a mom, be a dad. So we are being asked to do a lot, I think. So it's taken away from a lot of things that maybe our parents didn't have to deal with, you know, and we just are just stressed out. We are a stressed society, and we just trying to survive on a day-to-day basis and just trying to do our best, you know. And like one thing that Dre said that I thought was really interesting is how he keeps his work office separate from his like living space. I thought that was really cool because for me, I move my computer all over the house. So that's kind of why I feel like my work life is like integrated, because I like to change scenery. So because I don't want to get stuck in the same sitting all the time, and it's a little depressing. So I move in sometimes I work in the living room.
Well, work from the stove.
Yeah, work on the dining table.
Work from the toilet. Have my laptop on the toilet.
Yep,
I've done it.
That part. Yep, I've done that too. Take a call, you know, on the toilet. It's like you just kind of moving around, you know. But yeah, I mean, personally, I just feel like we are just being asked to do a lot, and we are struggling to balance things out. So, you know, and I know I struggle with it, and I'm, you know, constantly working at it, and even feel guilty at times because, you know, I think I've mentioned this before, when I feel like I'm short, you know, I have my shortcomings with maintaining friendship with friends, and they hit me up before, and they've hit me up the last maybe 4 or 5 times, and I've never made the time to reach out to them. You know, you in a way feel guilty about that because, like, man, they are making time to reach out to me. Why aren't I doing the same thing? So it's like you are judging yourself because you are not meeting your expectation for yourself. So it's really really cool. It's really one of those challenges that we go through.
All right, go ahead, D.
Yeah, I think you mentioned one thing that's actually really, really relevant, because when we talk about work-life balance, I mean, everybody hears the word work. We make that association that it's, you know, your employer, you know, work. I mean, the parts that we don't typically, you know, get tabulated is the stresses that we deal with every day in life. You know, like the expectations that we have from family members, from friends, you know, that's not like, going to help your boy move and setting up his apartment, that's still work. I mean, that's your homie. You trying to be there for him, but that's still, you know, that's still stress. and you use your weekend to do that. You use your weekend for a barbecue. You use your weekend to do. Those things are leisure per se, but it's all based on perception, right? So what you perceive as enjoyment, but being able to sit down and be quiet and be in your own headspace and just clear your head, that is something that is not equated into the balance portion, right? So I think it's just really interesting because even if you work a crazy schedule, work crazy hours, then you go home and then you're like, obviously adulting is hard. Let's be honest. I think we were all young and we were like 17. Like, I can't wait till I become an adult. I'm gonna be out, ma. I'm gonna be out, dad. I'm gone. And then you're like, oh crap, I gotta pay bills. I gotta be responsible for myself. I gotta wash my own butt. Like, goddamn.
Why you gotta wash your own butt? Nobody washing it for you?
Nah, my cuz, he moved on he got married, so he's not helping me no more.
Hey, yo.
Wow, we went there. Keep that between us.
We African, we family. Yeah. I got you, cuz. We literally be in the tub. So anybody who trying to front like they ain't never been in the tub with none of these siblings, get out of here. But but I think that's a really important point though. Yeah, because it's like there's more to work-life balance, and the stuff that's not again, that's not even the part. Those parts aren't measured. The psychosis of our society, our working society, those aren't tabulated anywhere. So there's many other factors that go in there that literally pull from the balance part that technically should be really moved to the work.
Facts, because you make a great point there, both of you, because it's like, yeah, when we look at work, we assume it's just the employer, right? But no, like there are cultural expectations within families. You go home, if you're a father, you got to put your father hat on, you know what I mean? And it's just like, Dre, you mentioned particularly relationships are work too. So it's just like when you go home, I feel like we have these expectations that we're meant to fulfill, everyone. And it's just when you feel burnt out in any arena, do you have that support to where you can just say, hey, I am burnt out right now. I need some help. Like, I need some balance. I need some closure here. You know what I mean? Like, I just did a 10-hour shift. And right now I'm not trying to come home and get nagged to death about why I didn't take out the garbage. You know what I mean?
Amen. Preach, brother, preach.
So it's like the expectations that we carry on one another and being able to set these boundaries, I think also plays an important part, which is something we'll speak on in achieving balance. But I'm not sure if you had anything else you want to drop on the relationship piece as well.
Yeah. I think that's always like an interesting question to ask, because I think everyone has like a different definition of what work-life balance is. Like, I think for right now, it's easy for me, right? Because it's just me and my wife, right? So, my wife knows my schedule. I wake up, no matter what, I wake up at anywhere from like 4 to 5 every morning, no matter what day of the week it is. It's just the way my brain is wired, no alarm clock. So I have like a couple of hours to myself where I can just be on the internet, right? Or watch something on TV, or I have like that, my alone time to kind of like reset. But I know it, I don't think I've talked about this in the podcast, but, my wife and I are expecting, a baby in January. So I feel like maybe this, I'm really helpful of this podcast, because I feel like maybe that is going to change as far as what we identify currently as work-life balance. Really, our work-life balance is like working until like 7 o'clock every day between the both of us. And then when it's dinner time, we stop whatever we're doing, right? I have to get off the Xbox, right? We have to eat dinner together. We normally watch TV until, we go to bed, or do something before we go to sleep every day. So that's kind of currently the balance that we have. I know things will change quite a bit once our baby comes. So it'll be really interesting. I'll be taking a lot of notes to figure out like what are some other things that we need to do. Because right now the balance is really easy. It's just literally we just work until 7 every day. Mm-hmm. We try to eat lunch quickly together sometimes or whatever, and then it's back to work. And then 6 o'clock, maybe I'll get off, play a little Xbox, or check, do some personal projects, right? different design things, watch some videos, listen to podcasts or whatever. And then, yeah, when it's time, dinner time is like the official thing. My wife doesn't ask me for much other than kind of, okay, when it's dinner time, we're going to actually eat together and we're going to, you know, pay attention and not be on our phones and that kind of stuff. So yeah, I think it's a really interesting take. But yeah, relationships at work too. You know, I think that's the biggest thing is that, you know, it's just as much a full-time job being a husband, right? You know, even for you, Glenn, I know, you know, your relationship as well, that's a job as well. If anything, you may actually have it a little bit more difficult in some places because you're not actually physically living together and you're needing to like balance, you know, your time and, you know, so
for real.
A lot to think about
Great
there.
points.
Yeah, Dre, you mentioned something that I've actually, when I was talking to one of my mentors before, one thing he asked me, it was like, what is important to you? He was like, what is important to you? So it's really, that's how you measure what your balance is. You know, like when you, like you mentioned also having kids, you know, some people, it could be, you know, working, and maybe it's not 7 o'clock, but able to make it to the kids' games. Like, you know, especially those afternoon classes, like workouts and games and stuff, like practices, and you have to drop the kids off. And some parents don't have time to be there for that. And you have to only be, just be one of the parents doing it. So I know my wife always, she has kind of mentioned to me before that, you know, you work too much, and you know, when kids come, I need you to make time. I don't want you to be one of those dads that buy all the expensive gifts and stuff, and just and you're not there for the games, you know. So for her, yeah, exactly. You know, she was like, I'm worried about you. Always like, you always got so much going on. I don't want you to be that dad, you know, and that's really important to me. So for me, it's like, you know, that is something that I have to be mindful of and be intentional about that, especially when, you know, if I'm blessed enough to be placed in that situation. So like to your point, Dre, is work-life balance looks different for people. For you guys, it works because you can work to 7, and your wife doesn't demand you to maybe get off work even earlier, and so you guys kind of gel pretty well with that. And some other couple might be different, you know, and the spouse or the husband or the wife may want more, where they're like, no, I don't want you to work that late. I want us to able to do dinner earlier, you know, stuff like that. And
Facts.
But yeah,
because another point to that too is that we were talking about technology, why technology isn't the cure for imbalances. And it's just like the things that we're mentioning here are all intrinsic. There's no robot that's going to be, you know, a father to someone's son or daughter, or a mother to someone's son or daughter yet. You know what I mean? There's no,
you still got to do it.
Yeah, there's no replacement for those human interactions, which weigh a lot heavier on us than anything else, and any workload that I can get. Like, to me knowing that, you know, I'm not in a position to support a family, that's a heavier burden to me than getting 10 assignments all of a sudden due the next day at my job. You know what I mean? Because to D Black's point, we are working to fuel these ambitions, these motives, these dreams, these things that we are expected to do, especially as men. And if you're not able to do that, then it's like, you're going to get questioned. What is your purpose? Like, what are you here for? So it's like, we're burning ourselves from both ends of the candle. And it's just like, you still don't achieve that goal. So it's like, if you're always at work, you're never at home. So it's like, where do you win? Like, how do you find that? And then, you know, scheduling is something that you Dre and Francis mentioned. We'll get to that in achieving balance, why that's so important as well, and setting that standard. But last thing on this before we move into some of the main causes why, and then we'll get into the solutions. Francis, you pointed out one thing in your first response about having too much accessibility, which I thought was pretty interesting. Like, you know, with COVID, you know, I worked primarily in the office, and then we went into a virtual setting, and, you know, basically, I had to deal with knowing that my television was now in my office, that next to my Xbox and my PS4. So it was just like,
temptation.
Exactly. It's like, well,
on my mind.
Yeah, who's gonna know? I can surf.
Yeah, Dre. I mean, Glenn, are you on your playing PS4 or PS5 or whatever it is right now?
I'd have
and then move your mouse. Like, I'm still online. It shows online. Okay. Back to the game.
For real, are you going to Zoom call and Narcos running in the background? You think you're on mute and it's still playing, and it's like, nah, bro, you watching Narcos? Me too. What season are you on?
You know what? Legit, like... I'm not gonna lie. I've done that. I've had, you know, have TV on in the background because, like I said, I work in the living room sometimes, and it actually kind of I know like on a productivity standpoint, because my cousin also mentioned this, sometimes it does take away from your focus a little bit, but it kind of, I think, in a way it helps with your mental state, man. Because if you've been working out for like how many hours and you just need to like get a break. And if that is your break and where you have TV on in the background and you can like move your eyes here and there and just kind of help you from a mental state, feel like you're not doing too much. Because I think it helps. At least that's what it gives me when I do it. It doesn't feel like I'm doing too much work at that moment. So it's really interesting how people,
I do feel like technology has kind of fooled us though into thinking that we're these like great multitaskers and whatever. Like I've been I need to try to find the article, but I remember seeing something where basically like all these adults are now finding that they have like ADHD, and it's just like, yeah, because you could be on a Zoom call with your camera off and be playing Xbox and on your phone doing something else, right? Like it's very easy. That's the thing that's difficult about this work from home stuff is like you really can't finesse being in the office and not working, but you can really finesse not being in the office, working from home. Like you could be in a different state, right? You could be on vacation, right? A vacation, you could be, some of these jobs, right? They don't care where you're at, right? You just need to have internet connection. So that's the thing that's kind of interesting as well, is that like with technology, I think it also kind of allows us to not be fully connected as well. And it's really easy to think you're doing a great job of multitasking, being on the Zoom call, but then also you got the Xbox controller in your hand. And you got I may or may not have done this, but you got the laptop in front of you on the desk, right? And maybe you got the TV behind you.
Mad.
So you're looking like you're doing it, but you're,
allegedly.
But people like, man, it's weekend league for FIFA, man. We got to get these games in. They're not going to be played.
Hey, that's balanced, Dre.
Yeah,
time for FIFA.
It's not really balanced. Then you're just
critical.
But you're just doing two things kind of shitty, right? Like instead of just doing one thing, okay, you're doing like two things terribly, So
speak for yourself.
You gotta be careful, man.
Amen. Amen to that. Praise Padre.
Just don't fall into the trap. Just don't fall into the trap, because I think we all think we're these great multitaskers. And we're really not, man. We're really not. We're really terrible at multitasking. Like I feel like we're really like putting our brains to like terrible. Like we're basically putting our brains into overdrive, right? Trying to do these really complex tasks, multiple ones at the same time. Like I feel like there's going to be some study like years from now on like how much we fucked up our brains by trying to like multitask as much as we do.
Facts.
Oh, funny thing. Well, actually, two things. Well, back to what thing that Francis said, because so actually, corporations, I feel like companies are starting to understand the value of allowing you to step away, and not like you have to take like your 15-minute break or your hour lunch. Like literally, like at one of our offices, there's actually a room, we call it the panic room, where it's literally there's no light in the room. It's just a chair, like a really comfortable chair, a wall, some flowers and stuff, and you can just go in there. And you like if you go in there and you scream, nobody will hear you.
Wow!
Like you can vent, you can take a nap, whatever you need to do. That's what that room is for. I don't know. I mean, I ain't gonna front. There's a little window so we can see you sleeping. but
as long as you don't snore and everybody hear you.
And nobody gonna hear you if you're in there snoring. But yeah, I just think it's like companies are starting to see the value of letting people step away from work and resetting. So yeah, even if you play video games, I mean, as long as it don't turn into like an hour session, I think
missing Zoom calls.
Come on, you can't just play a video game for 15 minutes. Come on, man.
Nah. There's not today. You ain't playing Tetris or something. I'll give you that. And then the second thing, it's funny that you actually mentioned this, Dre. There was actually a study done, and I forgot. I was trying to find it, but there was actually a study done with this guy where he considered himself the world's greatest multitasker. He's like a self-made, multi-millionaire. At the time, like million was a lot, right? But self-made multi-millionaire. And what he would do is like anytime he's in the car, he's always on the phone. He's like texting and stuff like at the same time. So they actually did this like little study where they set up a little obstacle course, right? Where he would drive his car and he'd be texting the whole time. And he was like, the first time they did it, he was going like 5 miles an hour, right? And then he was like, see, I could do it. I'm a great multitasker. And it was like, okay, do it again. Now do the speed limit. He was doing the speed limit, and then they was throwing stuff at the car. He was
knocking cones over, wasn't he? Knocking cones over, wasn't he?
And he was supposed to be like negotiating some crazy like imaginary deal. It was just terrible. He was botching it. He was saying the wrong person's name. So bad.
So more of the story,
I
don't
mean,
be that guy.
You really got to focus on one thing at a time to be great, right?
One, you shouldn't be texting and driving. So
yeah, well,
that's another big thing.
But that's the thing with technology, right? You can hit the button and tell Siri to type the message, right? So there's some people who are texting that way, which I think is almost just as dangerous, right? If you're holding down the button and you're speaking into the phone and having to repeat yourself, and so I know there's some of that stuff too, where people aren't necessarily holding the phone and texting, but they're texting with voice, and I think in some ways that's just as distracting as the text.
The way it sounds.
Okay, wait. Then what about? All right. Then if we're talking about text, we're talking about multitasking and texting, right? What do y'all think about people who text and walk?
Oh, boy.
Because people literally be thinking they can walk and text, and they got their head down the whole time. Yo, I don't know why there was a point where I had like a whole YouTube like obsession of watching people on YouTube walking into like poles, doors.
Yo, I've done that before. I ain't gonna lie.
Yeah, I think that's just the perfect example of technology used poorly. Like the whole purpose of these tools and the accessibility and the convenience is to essentially incorporate balance. However, overuse, it still requires us to have a certain command, willpower, and control over these things, right? So it's kind of just like what it ends up doing is creating another hurdle, essentially. Like technology isn't necessarily the solution if you still don't have any self-control or balance or command over these tools. And either day, they're just tools, you know what I mean, to make life easier.
Yeah.
However, poorly used, it's just a burden. You know what I mean?
Yeah, I saw this one prototype where they were showing what I think should happen was basically like your phone, it would use the back camera to look down at the ground. So if you were looking at your phone, right, you would at least be able to see your feet walking or whatever. They've never implemented that, but D-Black, I think that they would, that YouTube channel would be shut down if they did add that, because I think that would help people, right? People are looking straight down. Most phones have a camera on the back, right? Why not just turn that camera on and at least let you see, right? Because otherwise these people are lost out here.
Yeah, well, they're bringing like the Google lenses now where everything appears in like a glasses now. So I'm thinking maybe that'll help, but I also feel like that'll create even more distraction.
What you mean?
Yeah,
it's gonna be like all like floating ads.
You're gonna be talking to somebody, they're gonna be watching porn in their glasses.
Oh my god!
Like, yeah.
Like is that a booty?
In metaverse,
you got a booty in your
metaverse
eye.
is
You got a
coming.
booty in your eye.
I meant to send you guys this link, but there's this company who's developed these gloves that actually have the gloves have the like sensors in them. So like if you're picking up something, you would actually be able to feel it in the. So I can only imagine how dangerous that's going to be. Glenn, I already know your brain is going with that. But,
yams.
Feel some yams.
I'm about to create some scripts, boy. Metaverse. Metaverse.
It's a Gleniverse.
All right, so let's get into two more questions before we go. We'll start providing some solutions, right? Because we already identified all the issues. Let's get into two more. One that is a little bit more personal, but also one other I think will also resonate. What do you feel are the largest hurdles or the largest blockades preventing us or preventing individuals from achieving balance? I provided a list of answers, or you can just provide your own. Is it lack of financial security or steady income? Lack of or very little support from friends, family, and or spouse? Lack of or very little time for self? Or is it just essentially the lack of access to essential resources or conveniences? But what do you guys think is the main thing preventing people from achieving balance?
I mean, I can jump right in on this one. I think the main thing that's preventing us from finding balance is society, is like the societal expectation. Because it's interesting how we talk about work-life balance, but then, you know, it's a huge perception that the harder you work, like the better you are, like, you know, or the more production, the more value you bring, even, you know, in the corporate industry, you know, like, oh, that guy in like some extra hours, you know, he's grinding, he's doing it. That's the guy they want to promote. And if you're ambitious and you want to excel, you got to put in more time, even if even if that's not necessarily the best for you as far as your well-being and your health. It's like you can't have your healthy ambition to grow and then still have a healthy ambition to like live life and to the, I guess, to the fullest. So I think that's something that ultimately needs to change, because even like it's kind of like a what's it called, like a rite of passage for the next generation, because the working generation, they'll work harder, they're grinding, they're spending more time, they're doing this, they're doing that, they're juggling the world to reach the level where the person is before them. And then the person was like, yeah, I remember when I was young and I was grinding. Man, I hate that junk. It was stressful. Then change the system. You know what you're doing. You know when you were doing it, it didn't work. You know what you had to sacrifice to make it work. You know all the consequences associated with that. So why would you perpetuate that into the next generation? You know what I'm saying?
Facts. And I think a lot of that lends to generational differences as far as work harder versus work smarter. And then you pointed it out exactly, like the idea that, okay, if I'm here 12 hours, then I'm the most productive person. And you even see it a lot, you know, we were in Japan and Asian culture. How many people did we see literally coming off their shift, like literally the next day, throwing up somewhere
that was crazy,
to go right back to work? Like, it was insane. It's insane.
That was crazy.
So I think Elon said this. He said, I'd rather hire the laziest person, if you could say, because they will find the easiest ways to accomplish the same thing. I thought that was a really
dope.
I thought that was a really interesting quote. And I think this new generation, Generation Z, like they are very creative and are simplifying life for their generation and the people, and even for some of us, this older generation, you know. So, but to answer your question, I think for me, I think it's time. It's not like time for self. I just think it's time, because, you know, we kind of talked about this in I forgot what episode this was on, but it was talking about wealthy, rich, and poor, you know, because that is the level that if you are wealthy, you have time. That's the luxury that you get when you are wealthy. When you are poor and you are even rich, you don't have the luxury as a wealthy person when you have time and you can do as you please with your time. So then you have that balance and you can just choose what you want to do with yourself. But, you know, I think they all, like, you have really good options here. I think they all are consequences of unbalance. You know, what happens is, like, you know, we have spent more time, or we don't get that support from family and spouses. And, you know, the income stuff also is a big part of it. But for me, I would say time, because everything kind of surrounds time.
I'm all
I think
the 5-hour workday, Francis. If you want to start throwing that out there.
My friend, as soon as I moved to California, that was the first. I want to say that was like, he had it waiting for me, like the first. Like, I was only in our apartment for maybe 1 or 2 days, and he actually had that book sent to me like way in advance. So that's a really powerful. I don't know if you've actually read that book, but that the 5-Hour Workweek by Tim Ferriss is like a really powerful book, and I've definitely tried to incorporate as many things. I think for me, just for me personally, I think if I had to choose from your list, I know for some people, if obviously you're in a terrible financial situation, right? I think for some people it is probably money, but I think probably for me it was probably the lack of or very little time for self. So basically not kind of prioritizing me, I think, was probably one of the bigger issues. And I think once I started to just set rules or guidelines for like what was going to be important to me, what were the things that I wasn't going to do, right? You know, am I, you know, back when I was really going crazy on the freelance stuff, like, am I going to allow them to text me after a certain time, right? Am I going to allow them to push a deadline back that we've already communicated on? So I think for me, and I know I'm kind of expanding on it, but to me, once I put myself first and set like very strict rules to kind of and keep myself accountable. I think was the biggest thing for me is right, basically setting really firm rules for like when were the hours that I was going to work, and if I do break those rules, am I breaking it because there's a deadline that I have to meet, right? Just if I have to break the rule, there has to be a reason. There's another rule for why I can break the rule, I think is. So it's been easy for me is to try to like put myself first, set rules in guidelines, and then try to stick to that as much as possible and keep myself as accountable as I can be.
I hope y'all writing that down, y'all listeners. That's major keys right there. Set rules and structures around yourself.
Yeah.
Because
and hold yourself to
driving and working hard. Yeah, hold yourself accountable. Yeah, for real.
You have to be intentional. I use that word, but I'm still working on that as well.
Being intentional.
Yeah, it's a constant battle. I think is a daily thing. But go ahead, Glenn.
I don't want D was going to make him take this one before we get to our next question. If you had anything else you wanted to add here.
No. Like I said, I think.
You did.
I think Dre just surmised it.
Yeah. I definitely feel, for me, coming from my perspective, would be the lack of support from friends, family, kind of like those social expectations, which you also mentioned, but more or less so from the cultural point of view. I think is one of the main things, because I feel like a lot of the things we learn, like how to be on time, the reason why it's important, a lot of these things that we learn, how to manage our time, what to dedicate our times to. If you think about it, our parents, when we're growing up, set a lot of our schedules for us. So they kind of give us an understanding of, okay, how to dedicate your time, what to do, when to do it. And then all of a sudden you're kind of thrusted in the world, and now you're here to kind of essentially figure it out. And at the same time, please everyone in your circles and your families and things like that. And I feel like with all those stresses, it becomes very difficult to essentially find that balance. So if you can't find that balance at home, to me, I kind of feel like it sets the standard for what you're going to now inject into your work life and into your personal circles and how you manage your investments and things like that. I think it all starts at home, essentially. And not having that support could be one of the main things prohibiting people from understanding what it means to find it and actually acquire it. So that would be my answer. But you all guys make great points. I think all of these essentially fall in line for someone, but the thing was finding, okay, what impacted you the most? And, for our last question before we get to the solutions, which you already have pinned out, so we'll just be talking to them point by point. But for the last point for unbalanced, if there's one thing you could dedicate more time to, what would it be? And we'll start off with D on this one.
One thing I would dedicate more time to, well, I don't know. You said one, but I'm about to pull a Francis and give you two. So,
you're welcome.
Thank you. I don't know. Two it sounds really kind of silly, but one is like food. Like me and my wife are really big foodies. We like food. We like trying different foods. I don't know. Like food in my stomach makes me feel good. It makes me feel relaxed, and call me fat if you want, but I don't care.
Endorphins.
It makes me feel.
You look sexy, cuz. Sexy.
So trying different. I mean, not even when I say food, I mean like different food, something I haven't tasted before, I haven't tried, exploring different cultures. I mean, like being Nigerian is great because we have so many different business stuff, but exploring other cultures' food is just a great way to know the world from my perspective. I know my wife thinks the same way. So being able to try more food. And then the second one, which is something that I wish I prioritized a lot when I is sleep. Yeah, sleep is, I didn't realize the impact of bad sleep, and man, it has had an impact. So I wish I was able to kind of prioritize sleep a little bit more, because then that would definitely, I mean, that's how your whole body recovers. Your body shuts down, your brain shuts, no, it doesn't shut down, your body slows down, your brain slows down, you go into that REM, your body actually increases recovery while you sleep. As far as like physically and mentally, which is two things that, I never really paid attention to when I was younger. So sleep and food.
Definitely get your sleep, folks. It's important. No, I guess since my cousin pulled a me and you Sue, I'm gonna give you a 3. No, I'm just kidding.
Oh God.
Oh no.
No, I ain't.
What have I done?
I'm just joking. No, actually, for me, this is something that I've really struggled with. I was really good at this growing up, but it is having more time for. I'm going to group this: friends, family, and spouse. Just to be, because especially friends, I've gotten really bad with keeping in contact with my friends. And before, like, I remember when I was growing up, I used to call my parents like literally every single day. We went from, and my friends, I used to go like call my parents, call my friends, I used to talk to them every single day. Then that number decreased gradually, like every 5 years. Like, and now it's like, I barely call my friends. But thank God for social media. We have, group chat or whatnot, which I'm not very active in as well, but I try, at least it's a way of, one way that I've tried to improve, and kind of some of the stuff I've been trying to help improve that is to get my engage in a group chat setting so I can converse with them a little bit more. But that is something that I struggle with. And one thing that I'm trying to do to improve that is, like I said, be more intentional. Like really kind of setting blocks for, this is what I'm gonna do. And I'll actually save that for solution, because this kind of applies to what we can do to also improve on balancing, from work-life balance. But overall, yeah, just want to be more intentional with that.
I guess I have a question for you on the friends end, because, as we grow older, and D-Black pointed out earlier about adulting, I guess the kind of expectation is that, we become busier, right? Like we get a little bit more responsibilities. We may not be able to kind of do all the things that we were able to do back in the day. Like, I think the nature of friendships kind of naturally evolve in a sense where interactions may decline, but it doesn't necessarily make you any less of a friend or a brother to someone. You know what I mean? It's kind of like, if you have a partner, you having kids, they should, I feel like a good friend will understand, hey, he's having a child, happy for my boy, but I understand he may not be able to text me back all the time, or he may not be able to call me back all the time. So it's like, in a way, do you feel like there's some expectations, or where, unless there's like our friends that doesn't have anything going on with him, it's kind of just, or him or her, it's kind of like, all right, interactions will decline somewhat naturally over time as, you get more involved, but the friendship is really solid, you should be able to pick up, quickly. Like, I don't speak to D-Black every day. Sometimes it'll be like 2 weeks we don't talk. But when we do, everything kicks back off where it started. There's no like animosity towards one another for that.
Right. Yeah. Good point.
What's been going on with you for the last 2 weeks, bro?
Sometimes you don't even realize that much time went by. You know what I mean?
For real.
Relationship.
For real.
Like, damn, I ain't talked to you for a month. Like, what's good? You know what I mean?
Yeah. I mean, I am like that with my best friend as well. Like I said, I'm like that. So it's funny when I measure it, whenever I talk to friends, and they're like, man, we haven't kicked it, we should kick it more often. And I'm just always like thinking to myself, like, literally my best friend, I only talk to him like once every few weeks. Like, and then it gets even worse with everybody else. It's like, but for me, it's like, I think it's not even an expectation that they put on me, it's like expectation that I put on myself, because I'm always over here like, okay, like, especially when somebody is constantly reaching out to you before you can get to them, and you feel like you've been maybe a bad friend. Because even though I understand, I am busy, it's not like I'm purposely doing it, but that's something I've always I've been struggling with. Especially I've been more vocal about it the last couple of years. Like, I want to really get better with this, but it's easier said than done. Like, how do you guys do this? Do you guys talk to your friends? How often do you guys talk to your friends? Like, stuff like that. So,
all right, we'll touch on that during the solution too. Thanks for being transparent.
For me, I think I don't know if this is still something that I'm not. I feel like I'm now properly dedicating more time to this, but I feel like I still use it because maybe it'll be helpful to someone. Is really just kind of dedicating more time to like personal development, right? Personal development could be reading more books. Personal development could be hobbies, right? So, I've been trying to do as many different things possible. Like I bought like a little like drum, like an MPK, right? So, I was like, oh, I'm gonna make beats, right? So I really kind of went crazy and got into that, right? Bought a bunch of Legos, right? So like you'll see I'm kind of like create these like,
Oh, you gotta plug that. You gotta plug.
Yeah, create like these little like Lego things,
dope.
right? So just trying to like as much as possible.
Check marks
like,
off though. Check marks off.
It's not a check. It's not a check mark because actually these are a pair of Jordan Cement 3s. There's no check marks or swooshes on these. So I know you're not into sneakers like as much as I am, but
educate them.
There's no logos on those. But I do have another one. I'll show it at a different time. But yeah, I think really just trying to do like personal development stuff or just trying to like learn new hobbies, right? Like I'm sure like whenever I get a house, like I've always wanted to buy a drum set. Like I'm going to get a drum set. Right. So like just those type of things. I've always wanted a drum set as a kid. So I feel like just trying to like either invest in yourself, learn about things, right? If you're into finance, maybe you want to learn about cryptocurrency and that kind of stuff. I've been doing that as well. But really just trying to just use my personal time to maybe instead of like watching as much TV, right? Trying to listen to a book. I'm not really big on reading books, but I'm really big on like, I have an Audible account, right? So trying to like add books to my list and do those things. But I think really just making sure I'm dedicating more personal time for personal development. And that could be a range of like actually being like better at something, or it could just be like a hobby, right? Or just kind of express yourself, artistically. But that was one thing I feel like once I've started doing it, I got like some enjoyment out of, just doing things kind of differently, right? Different artistic things.
Facts. And I'll definitely have to second that one as well. This is being able to kind of excel. Like for me, I like to be involved in a lot of things. Like I kind of feel like identifying like what your skills are, what you're good at, and then expanding upon those is essentially like the best way to kind of excel in life, in my opinion. So it's just like when it comes to like endeavors and like, the creative side and, investment side, it's just being able to dedicate more time to those things to really learn them in and out. And you kind of use it as a means. Oh, that's dope. I use that as a means to kind of propel myself. Because I feel like once you're able to elevate yourself in a way, you're kind of, I always had the impression or the thought that, okay, once I get to a certain level, I'll have time to do all these things. But then it's just like at the same time, what it takes to get to these levels and then to maintain these levels is you really don't have a really good, clear understanding of that. So, basically what I've been doing to kind of make time for the real investment side, the creative side, the investment side is like, for me, what I'm doing to make more time for that is just, even if I do like, 10 minutes a day on something or 20 minutes a day on something, I'll dedicate that 10 or 20 minutes and just try to really take prudent, wise, intentional action towards each endeavor. So I'm looking at it like, I'm 35. Life expectancy in the USA is about 80 to 85. When I hit about 65, I'm pretty much useless. So it's just like, what am I going to do in those last 20 odd years? So it's like, and I know like a lot of society kind of has this in the mentality, you got to get it now, get it now. You see 14 and 13-year-olds making money off of NFTs and, things like that. And you're just thinking, well, what's my problem? And it's really that, you don't have the time. You don't have the time to dedicate to these things. So the way I look at it is that I don't necessarily have to spend 15 hours in a day on one thing to do well on it. If I'm taking consistent daily action towards that goal, that's more than enough for me, even if it's just 10 minutes, 15 minutes, 20 minutes, 30 minutes. Just making sure that I put a lot of intent into that time is all that's necessary.
Yeah, that's solid.
Yeah, I also just noticed that there were, I always would joke and say I don't have enough time. And then I did like a time study. So one of my clients had me do a time study where literally you write down everything you do throughout the day. Like literally I woke up at this time, I took a shit, I took a shower, right? I like literally for the whole day, you're noting everything that you do. Yeah.
Oh, wow.
Yeah.
5 hours.
Incognito, a lot of incognito window action. But so when you do that, you realize how much time you actually do have available to you. I think sometimes there's a lot of that as well for some people. I don't know if this is necessarily true for everyone, but I know sometimes we think we don't have time, but if you really looked at the time you spent on your phone, right, those type of things, I kind of avoid those, like that time thing that Apple sends once a week where it'll show you how much time you spend on each app. Sometimes I really don't, I won't look at it because I don't want to like, I'd be disgusted with myself that I was on, Discord for 5 hours, last week, right? So I feel like we also sometimes think
like,
we don't
Apple,
have
what you
enough
talking
time.
about? You don't know what you're talking
Yeah,
about.
no. Apple be knowing, man. Apple be knowing for sure.
But Dre, but Discord
Apple be
I look
snitching.
at as an educational thing though, right? Because people
Yeah,
talk about
it is.
it's I think it's a
Yeah,
it's a
it
productive,
is.
yeah.
Yeah, it is. But
That's
like,
where I find the news.
yeah, but it is. But
Mhm.
okay, if I'm saying I don't have time and I spent 15 hours on Discord, right? I could have maybe
You could've used that
spent
time.
12 hours on it, right? And used that 3 hours for something. So I'm just saying it's a balance,
Facts.
right? It's just
Yeah.
a balance. But yeah, I
Yeah.
think that's the biggest thing is just kind of also just seeing where you do. I think we don't have enough time, and I think we definitely do, right? Instagram
Yeah.
scrolling, TikTok scrolling, all that.
I mean, I'm not gonna lie, I love my YouTube videos, man. I have like few lists like like subscribers that I have I have to listen to, like talking about investments and cryptos and stuff. I have like every time I see a video from those subscribers, I have to watch it, So it's like, yeah, I do, yeah. So at some point, yes, people always say you make time for what is important to you. I think that is true,
Mhm.
but I think sometimes it's not true. I mean, I don't know, it's hard. My life, you have everything is important to me, but like, where does it fall in the ranking really? That's kind of,
And
I don't
that's
know.
the point.
Yeah.
Yep. And that's the point. Because it's not about not having enough time. It's just that it's time. That's why, time management is a skill. If you look on like, some job applications, it literally will say great time management. If it was something that everybody had, they would never have to list it on on a job description. It'd be it's very difficult because especially when you have so many competing priorities and so many things thrown at you at the same time, you don't feel like you have enough time. And then even prioritizing your tasks takes time. Okay, which one do I need right now? Which one can I do to tomorrow? Which one can I do next week? Like that's even challenging in itself. So Apple, get over yourself. Okay, it's not that easy. You can't just look at us like life is not linear. Life is not linear and chronological like that. It does provide insight. I mean, in all seriousness, it does provide some insight, but you shouldn't look at it like, I mean, if you're looking at YouTube videos and you're watching, how to learn a language or you're doing some stuff like that, and then Apple just says you're just watching YouTube videos. I mean, Apple don't know you're trying to learn a language,
Yeah, there's a missing context there. Yeah.
Yeah, it's what you do with the data. It's what you do with the data, right?
Exactly. Yeah.
Yeah. So I get the argument is that
Say
there
numbers
is
lie,
time.
people don't.
Yeah, there is time in a day, and you can always make time. It's just a matter of establishing what's a priority and what's important to you. At the end of the day, it's going to be about what's important to you. And
yeah. I mean, I think there's also time management in your career, like in the works, during your work hours, how you handle like demands and stuff like that. And there's also time management in your personal life. And for me, I feel like my personal life is like really where, because I feel like I look at those as two separate things, like your work and your life, from a time management standpoint, because like, even though I say, you have to try and integrate them together earlier, but from a time management stuff though, like I look at them like as separate things that you have to manage individually, especially like dealing with demands and saying yes and no to questions, to requests. And I think that's one of the items that we're actually going to talk about.
So let's go ahead and just jump in on these solutions. Let's smash these real quick. So basically, these are all based on searches I've done over the internet on work-life balance, and it's pretty much nailed down to these are essential steps that they've all had, intertwined, saying this is how you establish balance. So I wanted to talk on this one specifically because the more intrinsic it is, the less, objective it is, the more subjective it is. Those are the hardest expectations to kind of, define and, understand. So one of the solutions I found was including family, friends, and loved ones in your endeavors. So the way I perceived that was basically, for instance, with the podcast, I could say that a lot of our partners are probably less thrilled to hear, like, damn, you about to spend time on a podcast now? It's like, where's my time? When we gonna go out and do stuff? You know what I mean? But it was just like one way I found that helped with kind of easing that balance. And of course, Shorty loves the fact that I'm doing this with my friends and it's something that we're doing well at. Shout out to Morocco, you know, but one of the steps I found to make the process a little bit more digestible for her to know how my time was being invested was also kind of getting her included in the process as well. Not necessarily making her like a 6th or 7th member of the pod, but just filling her in on stuff like, hey, you know, we did this today. What's your thoughts on this? Like, hey, here's an agenda that I did. You know, what do you think about these questions? You know, do they relate? Or even when we discuss topics that can relate to her, I found that to be helpful in sharing the endeavor. So it wasn't like, okay, I kept this to myself and I'm hiding in my corner. I'm trying to get away from you. That's why I'm doing it. No, it's because, hey, listen, end goal, I want to expand this idea to something bigger that can help everyone, help us. Because if I grow, you grow. So it's essentially, you know, getting them involved in the process, sharing your ideas with your family and friends, not thrusting responsibilities on them, but just letting them know, keeping them apprised, and showing them that it's something that you're passionate about and that you're willing to share your passions with them.
Yeah, I like that.
I think that's
lot.
really strong. Yeah.
Major key.
Yeah, I think
So
that's really
did
strong because
DJ Khaled?
transparency.
Yeah.
DJ Khaled.
Major key.
But I think that's strong just because of the fact that you know, when people have information, it makes them feel like they're part of it with you. And that kind of helps them to kind of get better understanding of what you're dealing with, because especially, you know, as we all kind of live within our own bubble, you know, even with some industry, even within the pod, we all work in different industries, and some of the industries, like, you know, I don't have any understanding or any expertise in it. So, you know, the stresses that may be related to your job, you know, I can't correlate them to mine, you know. So having that conversation, be like, yo, bro, I did this, and I'm like, oh, okay, what is that? And just having some transparency, having those open discussions, it just lets me feel like, oh, wow, this man's doing a lot, this man's doing this man's juggling that. And it also kind of makes me feel like I'm a part of the conversation too. Like, I'm there to support you if you need me, you know? So I think that's really awesome, you know, that you guys do that too.
Yeah, facts. So wherever you can incorporate that, I'll definitely recommend. It's helped for me, essentially as well. Because, you know, I like to do 1,000,001 things. So there's always something to keep her informed about. But it definitely helps, especially if you're one of those people that are constantly on the clock, constantly on the move. You know, make a little time, keep your partner involved, keep them updated, informed. You know, especially, you know, when you make those strides, they'll be happy to support you. Or they should be. They're not, red flag. So let's get to the next one. The importance of establishing priorities and keeping a schedule. I think, who wants to take this one in particular and speak on this one a little bit?
Well, I mean, I guess I can speak on it. Like, well, like, at least from a works standpoint, you know, I think it's really important. One thing that I've heard a lot from successful people and people that I look up to is blocking your calendar to really set like assigning activities to that calendar. You know, I think it's a way to kind of police yourself and kind of keep you on track with your time management. You know, we kind of talk about time management, you know, really booking your calendar out, you know, and assigning responsibility to it. And actually you have to be intentional about actually doing it too, because I've gotten to a moment, you know, where like you set up a time and then you like, you know what, I got all this going on. I'm just gonna like maybe push it another hour. But you have to really focus about being intentional about that and sticking to that calendar and to that schedule, because then with that you actually you do produce positive outputs. I think so. Just kind of that would be my tidbit on that.
Facts. And when you mentioned the key part is being intentional with it. So it's like, hey, you know, my schedule says this, I'm doing this. Everything else will just have to take the back burner. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And also important, another add to that is making time for you on that schedule as well. Because we could easily just book that entire schedule for work stuff and never make time for ourselves. So when we do designate those days, like there'll be a lot of times where I get emails on a Saturday and I'm like, I ain't answering that shit. You know what I mean? Like, that's wait till Monday. You know what I mean? I'm back on the clock.
Oh, like, man, and I'm that guy sending them emails.
Oh man, I could see my cousin being that too. Yeah, to be honest, I'm the guy that I look at my work email. I'm addicted to it. Like, I look at my work email even on weekends at least 5 or 6 times a day. Not really because I plan to take any action item on it. It's like when I wake up, one of the first thing I do is look at my work email because I want to know what kind of day I'm about to have. It's either about to be a stressful, really like there's a bunch of mess, you know, there's a bunch of fires that I need to like put out, or so yeah. So on the other end, you sending it, cousin, and I'm gonna be the guy that seizes it. I watch it. I may not respond to it, and I also may respond to it because I'm always checking my work email.
Yeah, I'm just afraid of them getting the feeling that, okay, oh, Ben answers emails on Saturdays now. Let's send them more emails. Like, they will keep that in mind, in my opinion, to say, hey, okay, bet he answered this email on a Saturday. Let me send another email on a Saturday and see what happens. So you know what? Let me send it on Sunday and see if he answers this one too. So it's like once, and the importance of being intentional with your schedules, because they will see that and some people will run with it. You know what I mean? They'll be like, you know what? I could have got this to you on Tuesday, but I didn't want to work on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. So, you know, I'm gonna send it to you on Saturday because I know you're gonna reach it. Now it's important, right? Now it's urgent. Now it needs to get done. But kind of getting people that I work with also in the mind frame that I don't only work for you, but you work with me as well. So you gotta kind of understand my standards as well. I got a life outside of work. You know, I'm not getting paid to the point where I feel like it justifies me answering these emails on the weekends, especially if it's something that you could have sent me midweek or earlier in the week. You know what I mean? Those things, to me, it's like, if I'm not getting a phone call about it, if it's an email, it's not that important. You know what I mean?
First of all, I need to clarify something. Yeah. All right. First of all, I already let anybody that I send emails to on the weekends, I let them know well in advance. There's no expectation for you to respond. This is my only opportunity to get caught on these emails. So I want to appear like I'm that dude, okay? So I just want to make that really clear.
You can be that dude. It's fine. Yeah, we love all our bosses. It don't matter what kind of boss you are.
No. All right, so that means D, you could take it on this one. Doing versus delegating, understanding and living the difference. Can you speak to us on that one?
Yeah, I'm one that really tries to, you know, I think it's interesting too because, like I said before, I think again it's really cultural not really cultural, I should say. Well, it's cultural, but I think it's systematic. And the reason why I say it that way is because doing versus delegating, you know, I try to, because like I guess I don't try to delegate things, you know, that I guess that I'm really supposed to do, or try to pass off my workload onto others. That's the first part. And two, I don't know, I feel like it's important to always kind of I'm very team oriented, and I always like try to show people that I'm in the trenches with them, you know. Everybody that I work with, you know, the most part, you know, they know that, that I've done it, I've been there, but I'm not the type to try to overtask. I'm not the type to if I absolutely need you to do it, I need you to do something. But most of the time, it's always a conversation. I always approach things from the first perspective of a conversation, because people are people. They live their own lives, their own responsibilities beyond the scope of, you know, the work that they have, you know. So I think it's really important to have those conversations before you start saying, let me pass that on to you, you take care of that. Now, so that's work. Now, but in a personal life, you know, I think it's important it's actually kind of interesting because I have a hard time passing things on to other people. And, you know, even my boys in the podcast will call me out. Like, yo, you can't do that, bro. You call me out, be like, bro, I don't think you're gonna do that, bro. I think you're gonna drop that. But it's really, really hard. Yeah. There was a time. There's still stuff in the works though. We'll eventually get to it. It's gonna be cool when it finally comes out. But just in general, I think it's important that I've learned that I need to be able to reach out to people more, and I guess it's interesting too because it's actually kind of hard. I didn't realize how hard it is to ask for help. You know, because I'm so used to always being the person that gets asked for help. You know, but it's actually I don't know. I was like, damn, like asking for help is really challenging, and I guess I don't know if it's the fear of rejection or what what associates with it, that maybe you like people are like, oh gosh, this man can't figure out his own life, you know, like he's asking. But it's important, you know, the people that care about you, they want to help. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. You know, they want to help lighten the burden. It's important that you reach out to them and I don't think the word is delegating. I don't think it's necessarily a form of delegation. I think it's extending an olive branch so that way, everybody can kind of thrive and figure it out together. Because nobody wants to see somebody like overwhelmed and overextended and burnt out and struggling to figure out life.
Yeah, essentially. Yeah. Especially like, for instance, you're in a management position where your team is your responsibility. So I think it's definitely easy because you want the team to do well. You want your teammates to respect you and revere you and things like that. You can easily get caught in the trap where you're doing everything for the team, right? But at some point, it's like, the Chicago Bulls. MJ was the star, but he still had a pretty damn good supporting cast to help him out. You know what I mean? To help him shine. So it's kind of like the reason for doing versus delegating is essentially knowing that, to do well, you can't do everything. If you have people in your team that can help support, fill the position that they were put there for to do, then you take a lot of that burden off of yourself at the same time. So you're able to still manage effectively. You know what I mean? So, but you spoke really well additionally on asking for help, which is our next point. And I think, Dre, you want to take this one, the importance for asking for help.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's definitely something that, especially in a work environment, is probably it's gotten easier for me. Is basically just, I think the biggest thing is I've tried to identify tasks that aren't things that I have to do, right? Mm-hmm. So what's been helpful for me is like just documenting, this is a task that DeAndre does not need to do. So I'm going to quickly record. I don't know if you're familiar with the software called Loom, but it just like connects to your computer and it like screen records. So literally that's what I do is I'll create a Loom video where I'm like, hey, thank you for helping me out with this task. I want to quickly record this process just to walk you through how to do it. This is something that you could do. I believe in you, all that stuff that you kind of, give people to make them feel that
empower them.
So that's been the biggest thing for me is basically just been asking for help, but not asking for help in a way to where like I try to not like leave it to the last minute where I'm potentially putting them in a bad spot by waiting so long. So that's been the easiest thing for me is just like finding those little things like that. Like if it's a task that I can give to someone, then I'll spend the 15 minutes to record the video, give them a walkthrough, and then literally it makes it all easy. It's all web-based. So they give you like a perfect link, you give them the link, and then it's the recording. So it's that's been the biggest thing for me is like asking for help, but asking for help in a really kind of smart way, not just waiting till the last minute. But just trying to get all the little silly things off my plate that aren't things that I have to do. I think it's been the most helpful for me is really just trying to find those tasks, find those things that I commonly need help with and say like, look, I don't, I kind of almost have this joke about like, I want to put my client in a position where like they could replace me, right? Obviously they can't really replace me, but you know what I mean? Just put them in a place where I can work on the more strategic stuff, the stuff that they would rather be working on than like the stuff that anybody else could be doing. And so that's been the biggest help for me is trying to find those things to delegate and ask for help in that way. There's probably other things that I probably like to do more that's a lot harder, but I've found it easiest by getting those little things off the plate sooner than later. And it's really easy for me to ask for help for stuff like that, like stuff that I hate doing that isn't stuff that is design related. Like it's literally just, like this client like always asks me to upload something. I'm like, here's how you can upload it yourself. You don't need to ask me to do this, right? Like you could do it yourself, right? And I always kind of sneak it in like, oh, if I'm not here, like I want multiple people to be able to do this, right? Like I don't want this to be only something that I can do or whatever. So that's been the biggest, that's where I found the easiest way to ask for help is asking for help for the things that I don't like to do, that I don't need to do, right? That are things that anyone could do. So I've been trying to do that as much as possible in my work life. Yeah.
Dre, you sound like that Elon Musk quote right now, bro.
Nah, he's dropping
what was that quote, friend?
No, that's no, but yeah, if there's things,
was a gem.
Like you want to hire the laziest person because they'll find the easiest solutions of getting things.
Yeah.
I think there's also Steve Jobs like biography that mentioned that as well too.
Yeah, I don't know. Like I said, I don't know exactly if it was Elon or it was one of those top guys that mentioned that. I don't recall exactly who said it, but yeah.
Yeah, it's like essentially like why would I want to spend, 15, 20 hours doing something if I could find a simpler, more effective way of doing it? That frees you up. Essentially, for someone that's even self-employed, if I'm spending 10 hours trying to show you how to do something or doing something for you that you could easily do, then I can go out there and I can go out and secure more business. And, you find a process that works, is effective. He's selling the program, you know what I mean? As opposed to being the program, you know what I mean? And I think essentially that's how you achieve balance, especially when you're in a position where you're like self-employed. And I think that's a lot of issues people run into when they start their own businesses as well. We're always put in positions where we're working for someone, but then we finally start working for ourselves. We get into this mindset of always wanting to do everything, but you can't really inject value into your brand or business if you're doing everything. Some things you just have to delegate, find out what you're good at, find out somebody that's good at doing it instead, and it makes the process a lot easier so you can actually focus on what you need to be doing. And that's another great point there too. Sometimes we don't essentially know what we need to be doing. You just figure we got to do everything in front of us. That's not always the case.
Yeah. And it's even, now even with this client now, I have someone who's kind of working for me now. And that's basically what I've been doing for her, is like literally just recording the videos, hand it off to her. She feels good that she's able to help me out, but more importantly, it's just another person I'm able to train to do it. So I know it's super helpful in both kind of freelance as well as like in-house as well. But to me, anytime you can like physically show someone how to do, and that's obviously got to be someone who wants to do it, right? Like you can't just be given every task to anyone, but that's been the most helpful thing to me, is really just really just saying, hey, I could do this, but would you like to learn how to do this yourself? Right. I feel like that's been like a little trick that I've used. I know you're asking me about me asking for help, but that's how I've been trying to flip it to some people when they come to me for the same task. I'm like, look, I'm happy to do this, but I'm not going to be able to do this right now. I'm not going to be able to do this until later today. What would be easier is if I could quickly show you how to do this now, and then you could do it kind of moving forward, right? I could still help you out. So that's been kind of the little trickery that I've tried to add into the toolboxes when someone comes to me asking for something, saying like, hey, I have these other things that I need to do today. Is this more important than this thing that I'm telling you is super important to me? And having them help me decide like what priorities are and stuff too. I think that's another huge thing with asking for help as well. Like asking for help on like, what is the priority for today? Does this need to be done right now? Is this email that you're sending me, do I need to read it right now? And do I need
on
to
Saturday
act on it right now?
D-Black?
If not, just schedule the email to go out on Monday morning. Like, why would you even send me the email if you don't want me to potentially read it, right?
D-Black.
So
damn, you all attacking me, coming at me, Dre. Golly. All right, but what I'm taking away here, what I'm taking away from this conversation is that everybody, we don't have to be the table. We could tell people, teach you how to make the table.
Yeah.
See, that solves the argument. Everybody wants to know what you bring to the table. You don't have to bring the table. You can just teach people how to. No, I'm just playing. Let me stop.
You can't afford Kevin Samuels right now.
No, also, like I showed you how to do this, right? Like you're always gonna be, oh man, D-Black showed me how to do this thing. Like I thought I couldn't do it. Now I don't have to bother him any. Like there's also all that psychology too. I'm definitely all about like the, if you're playing the game, right, you have to. That's another thing I don't think we talk about enough is like when you're in corporate, when you're working a job, there is a lot of that like. Having people talk well about you when you're not in the room, and anytime you can make someone look good, right? Or you can make someone look good, there's all that like unwritten rule stuff that you really just have to learn as you go. But yeah, the bigger the company, the more important those little things are, right? Like, oh, Francis, man, that guy is always helpful. Like anytime I ask for help, like he's there to help me out, right? Or all that little stuff is super important, and especially when you're working in corporate, is all those little ways to finesse, right? All those ways to kind of make yourself stand out from the next person, all that stuff with little bonuses and stuff. All that stuff adds up.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So rule number one.
That's what kills work life stuff. But then that also
kills
that
too. Yeah, exactly.
Because you're like, oh, he's the guy that if you need him, you could call him anytime.
Exactly.
Facts. One thing I realized though is like having the skills to kind of implement systems to do your job is a lot more effective than being the guy that's on the clock all day. Like for instance, like we have tools in our system where I can manually make these Excel sheets. But I just find out, hey, if there's a tool in the system that automatically populates this information for me, and that's when technology becomes a tool to help you excel rather than a burden, it's kind of like being able to use these tools and make them work for me is a lot more beneficial to you and the company in the long run, right? Because we could always take ourselves out of the equation, and then what happens? You know what I mean? You got to find somebody else to replace you. They may not have the skills, but I put a system in place that can essentially give you the information that you need. Hell yeah, getting that, asking for that raise and that bonus will make your life a lot easier. For real, they can't turn you down for that.
Dre, I just want to add one comment to like what you said earlier, about corporate and how people see you. It's like really it's consider your image, right? So like, it's not really, sometimes we see ourselves a certain way, but that actually in reality, that doesn't really matter. What you think you are good at is really how people see you is what matters. That's really what drives success in corporate. But and a lot of the things you said, I really associate that with like learn how to say no to stuff. Because even though you're not like,
let's get on that one.
Even though you're not naturally just saying no to people, you are empowering them to like be their own problem solver, right? So instead of like, oh, I don't have time for this, like, you know what? Let's make time, set up maybe a meeting, show them how to do it, like, or do a video like you do. That's a great way that, one of the things that I do at work that I've started doing, because I was that guy that was saying yes to everything. I was always, taking on more and just always trying to be as resourceful to people. But more recently, I've kind of learned to ask questions like, how critical is this? When do you need this by? Because that kind of set the expectation, like, okay, how urgent is this request that come from me? And one also thing that I actually learned that one of my mentors also said to me is, you also want to know who the request is coming from. Because if you say no to something that is critical, came from like a senior leadership, then actually it will look bad on you. So it's actually having to play that politics and knowing who the request is coming from, knowing the timeline of when the request is due, then you can kind of set, kind of manage your own time as far as delivering some of that stuff. And if it's something that is not critical, then you can say no to it. So it's really just playing within that fine line and learning no, completely saying no to something like, hey, I don't have the bandwidth for this right now. I have this and going on at the moment. Can I come back to you like in a month or so? Or can I set up a meeting in 6 weeks, So
someone was telling me to do the like yes, but instead of saying no right away to someone, right? There is some like psychology, like, yes, I can help you with that, but if I help you with this, right, if you're saying this needs to be done right now, these are the things that are going to be impacted by me not, so like I was also told to like find a way to like to not say no to someone, to just like say yes, but, or yes, and, or whatever, should try to find like different ways. Because if, you obviously don't want to be seen as someone who's always saying no, right? Sometimes no is such a like, but that there is a lot of, as sad it is to say, there is a lot of that like manipulation stuff kind of in if you read 40 Laws of Power and all that stuff, there is a lot of that, like 48 Laws of Power, sorry. There is a lot of that, like, kind of manipulation a little bit, right? Where you're, saying yes to someone, but you are saying no, right, in a nice way, right? Or, whatever. There is a lot of that too, that I think just gets easier over time. And if you're just starting out in your career, you probably don't want to be, you probably should just be saying yes. But once you get to a certain level, once you're like managing a team and stuff like that, I think you are able to kind of say no and it not be looked at as like a bad thing. But that's just something I think you just get easier as you do it more. But yeah, there is a way to say no to someone and it not be such a like, damn, every time I go to Francis, he says no to me, like
me down, asking me all these damn questions.
Now
I'm not gonna ask him for nothing because I just don't want to answer a million questions.
Yo, dead ass though, real talk though, since I became more vocal and asking more questions and pushing back a little bit, the number of like jabber, because I used to get a lot of jabbers like, hey, can I meet with you real quick? Because I'm having this issue. And like that number has decreased so much. And it has helped my work-life balance, because I feel like my life in the last 6 months to a year has been so much better than the last like 2-3 years, because I've been able to manage stuff a little bit better, even though I still have my struggle. But I think, that's just critical. I'm just agreeing to
because definitely drop some gems there, because there is an art to saying no. It's not just typically saying, and me being the no master, I know this, like, and I agree, Fran, like, you got to ask those questions. A lot of times you get requests. It's not that the person is trying to, mess up your Saturday or your weekend or your football Monday or your football Sunday. Sometimes it's like you don't know where the request is coming from. It could be maybe the senior EVP is, funneling that information down to your vice president. Now he's coming to you because you're the only person that may have the solution. So yeah, it does pay to ask questions, and that definitely does help to get a better understanding. Why am I getting this request at this time, and how essential, how important is it? Yeah, I felt me particularly that definitely helped me a lot in my position also, because especially if you're someone where if people think they could just dump things on you, then you definitely got to ask questions. So another part to saying no, one of our last second to last points, and I'll take this one, identifying and addressing when you simply maybe overbooked. And that also goes into the art of saying no, in my opinion, as well, because let's be real, like we have to make time for ourselves, but you also have to know your limits. It's like when you don't know your limits, it's going to be very easy for people to just simply assign things to you, or you may find yourself in a position where you're like, yeah, I can do this. But even to a point that Dre said, you could do a million things in one day, but if you do all of them poorly, then you essentially, what's the point? Essentially, identify time in your schedule where you can dedicate to something or that thing that you really feel like you want to do. Follow your schedule, keep the intent, and really take a measure of what you can actually manage. Because the last thing you want to do is put yourself where, you're surrounded by all these expectations and things that you need to do, and you're fumbling the ball on every single one of them. So knowing your limits is very, very, very important, especially if there's a lot of things that you aspire to do. Know your limits and follow intent. Set those boundaries and standards, and then by setting them, people will have no choice but to follow them. I feel like, in my opinion, as long as you're vocal about it, you let them know, hey, I am at capacity. This is what we can do to still reach the goal, but I'm just may not be in a position to do it at this time. And the last point for achieving balance, making time for me. So basically, and I'll just drop my gem on this for you guys to drop your conclusions on it as well. Basically, make time for you and keep that intent in your schedule after your 40, 50-hour work week, however many hours you work. Always secure a block for yourself to rejuvenate, spark that creativity, do that thing that you love to do, whether it's playing video games, reading a book, scouring YouTube for videos, going down those rabbit holes on Craigslist, looking for twerking cake cutters, whatever it is that makes you happy, do it. Spend some time on it, you know what I mean? And really take that time to rejuvenate yourself, go to the spa, do that self-care, whatever it is, block that into your schedule, because realistically, you do your best work when you're at your best. You're your best boyfriend or girlfriend when you are at your best. You know what I mean? You're your best father, wife, husband, mother, when you are at your best. So take that time, for yourself. And I guess there's any other gems from the pod on this before we conclude?
Major key. Yeah, I think really, so for my end, to kind of wrap things up for me is really kind of listen to your body, kind of really figure out what is important to you, identify what those are, then really and decide how you want to go about that. One of the things that was important to me before was working out, and I realized my schedule didn't allow me to get out there and work out as much as I need to. So I moved working out to early in the morning, so I get up earlier so I can get to the gym. So there's obviously other things that I struggle with, but as long as you are honest with yourself and know, connecting with my friends is not something I'm really good at right now, and you call it out, and that's something that's important to you, just keep trying and be more intentional about getting to it. I think when we identify what we are trying to work on, over time, we do get better in those spaces. So at least that's kind of what I'm opening for myself in some of those missing areas, you can kind of fill those gaps. So be intentional with yourself, know exactly, identify what is important to you, and self-care is definitely important as well. So mental and manage your burnout measurement, kind of keep those metrics, just keep that in check, because we don't want to go crazy out here, because it's easy to,
easy to burn out. Exactly.
Yeah.
D Black Dre, any last points?
Just the last thing I had was is something that I started doing, I want to say it's probably like 10 years ago, and someone told me to do it, and it's been really helpful. It's basically like at the end of your workday, for example, create a task list for all the stuff you need to do the next day, right? So then when you're starting your day the next day, right, you're already starting kind of fresh with like, what are the things that I need to kind of keep top of mind every day? But I suggest doing that at the end of the day, right? So just when you've thought about all the stuff that you didn't get done today, write it down. So then you're starting fresh, you're starting the next day kind of with a task or a punch list of things. Now that may change, but I feel like that was like the easiest way for me to like really like make the distinction. Okay, I'm not working anymore. I'm not thinking about it anymore because I wrote this down on the list and I'm actually going to look at this list the first thing tomorrow and tackle it. So I feel like that was one of the easy tricks that I added to my way of working that really kind of allowed me to shut my brain off from working. So that because I know like, hey, I wrote this down, I'm going to look at it first thing tomorrow or whenever I do pick it back up. So I would highly suggest if you're not already doing that to see if it works, right? It may not work for you. Maybe it causes you more stress by looking at all the things that you need to do. I know that kind of works the opposite for some people, but for me, it was really helpful to just have that list created at the end of every day. So then I started off the next day like really ready to go. Like, okay, this is all. And then maybe some of that changes right with emails that you get over the weekend. Sorry, D Black. But that's always been really helpful for me is just kind of setting the next day, the day before, and it just allowed me to shut my brain off because then I wasn't thinking about it anymore because I.
Facts. Oh, D, you're on. Oh, there we go.
Yeah. So for me, I think yeah. I mean, we all hit some really some points. I guess two things for me is one, it's important to know yourself, and in the process of knowing yourself and understanding that that your preferences and how you relax and how you decompress and how you reach that work-life balance is not going to be the same across all people. So first, some people are extroverts, some people are introverts. Some people need to be in a crowded room with a lot of noise at a party or a club, and that's how they recover. Some people need to be in a quiet space, and that's how they recover. Know yourself, but then also remember that other people are going to be different. So just because it's like, oh, you think, oh, let's go to the movies and stuff like that, like we prime example, we spoke about, work, relationships, work, everything, there's still work to those things. And if it's not how the other individual you're interacting with, if that's not how they recover, don't, but you recover in that manner. Don't assume that, I'm saying it backwards, but don't assume they're recovering the same way you recover. If you need to watch a movie, scary movie cover, they need to take a nap, or they need to go to the club, or they need to, maybe throw back some beers or something. Like everybody recovers differently, and you need to apply that mindset and that understanding across the board. Because we're all kind of trying to figure out work-life balance. So it's important to understand that everybody's work-life balance is different.
Facts, man. Great gems, fellas. Great gems as we all strive for better understanding and try to excel in this so-called life. Just want to say, everyone, all of our listeners out there in the world, man, definitely take these gems. Follow us at Jerk Jollof College Pod on Instagram. Check us out. Podcast episodes drop every Wednesdays. You can reach us on Instagram to follow some of our post-podcast discussion content. If you'd like to get involved in some of our discussions that we hold online on Insta, so be sure to check us out there. Leave us a review, drop us a like. We definitely appreciate those. Get us on your charts out there. We hit Morocco. We're trying to go for the top 10 out there as well. But US, show us some love too. Jamaica, show us some love. Nigeria, show us some love. Puerto Rico, show us some love. Put us on the ranks out there in your Society Culture Podcast list. For everyone here in the States, we wish you all a very happy Thanksgiving as we'll be going on into the Thanksgiving holiday this week when this episode drops. We hope you all have a happy gobble gobble. Hope you find your missing connection out there, hopefully during this cuffing season. But more importantly, keep it safe. Protect your loved ones out there. Mask up if you have to. And definitely, we hope you enjoy this time with family, friends, and loved ones. And take this time to decompress and self-care, y'all. Get that turkey laid back, watch the game, and have some good times out there, all right? Thank you for keeping it cultured with us on the world's most cultured podcast. Until next time, stay blessed, stay peace, one love.
Peace.
So
Peace.
Yams.
And that concludes today's episode, but that doesn't mean the conversation has to end. As a matter of fact, feel free to check us out at JJC Podcast on Facebook, Instagram, or Twitter for our post-discussion question following the release of this episode. If you are a Black or minority business owner or professional that would like to be featured on the Rep Yours segment of our show, or a listener with some general feedback for the podcast panel, feel free to shoot us an email at jjcpod@gmail.com. As always, likes and comments are always appreciated. Be sure to subscribe or follow to be notified when the next episode releases. And until then, stay safe, stay blessed. Peace.